Sorry. So we're going to ask everyone to take a seat at this time. We are going to begin our program. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So welcome. First of all, we are so excited to have you today at Connections Matters. I'm Dana Benton, and I am the director of Alumni Relations, External Relations, and Career Services. I'm super excited. I just joined the BUSSW community in the middle of June, so I'm fairly new, but super excited to be here. I am going to go ahead and call up Dean Jones to make her welcome remarks.
Thank you, Dana. Thank you all for being here. It's really important. We're so glad to welcome you to this incredible event that's co-sponsored by Boston University School of Social Work and GBABSW. I have to say, this partnership, Malika and I sometimes sort of joke about, it just started with, we should probably meet, and then maybe we should meet again, and we should send some students to the conference. Yeah, that's a good idea. And I just love where we've come. Like, I think it's so powerful, and it really highlights the importance of being in community together, listening to each other, and true partnership. So I'm so grateful for the work that I've been able to do in this role and that we've been able to do together. So thank you very much for all that great work. Yeah. I'm not going to take a lot of time because we have an amazing speaker and we have an amazing panel, but I do have to say a few thank yous. So let me begin, of course, by thanking Melissa Smith-Haley, who is the 14th president of the National Association of Black Social Workers. We are so honored to have you here. We got to meet, I think it was SWR, right? It was the SWR conference. Was it NAD? I keep doing that. I keep thinking it's SWR, but it was NAD. And she has a better memory than me, so that is a lovely thing to know. No, but that was great, and we just really connected. And I know you have such reverence for the Boston chapter, too, so that combination, we were like, yes, we need to have you come here and be with us. So thank you for that. That means a lot to us. Of course, I have to thank Malika Mims, who is president of the Greater Boston Area Black Social Workers, a BU alum, and also teaches for us. So, and that's not even her day job. So, I mean, this woman is busy. So she's been a great leader and a great partner. I'd like to also thank the executive leadership team, the student affairs committee, and the membership committee of GBABSW. If you're here, can you wave your hand so we can clap for you? Yes. Awesome. I'll leave thanking our esteemed panel to the end because you'll be so grateful to know them. I can't go much further without really taking a moment to thank Dana Benton, who is our new Director of Career Services, Alumni, and External Relations. Yes, she has a very big job, and she does it beautifully. And so we've only had Dana working with us since this summer, and already you've made such a difference, and today is part of that evidence. So we're really glad to have you here with us, and thank you for everything you did. Okay, well, I think without further ado, I'm going to turn it back to Dana, and I'm really looking forward to our afternoon together. So, thank you.
Okay, so, thank you. I'm going to adjust as well. So we, as we open any ceremony, moment of celebration, moment of learning, do appreciate bringing in an opportunity to celebrate and acknowledge our ancestors through a libation. And so I am going to call up both Marcus Shaw, who is one of our BUSSW students, and also Mr. Haley, Esquire, LLM, and owner of Haley Law Practice, and member of the New Orleans chapter of NABSW, and an honorary chapter now of the Greater Boston, woo, 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 to lead those libations.
So everybody heard it. I'm now an officially adopted member. Pour libations and speak in the name of the ancestors is something I've had the privilege to do over many years, both visiting National Association of Black Social Worker conferences and in my very home. One of the things that the guest speaker, my wife Melissa, and I share is that 20 years before we met each other. She's in St. Louis, I'm in New Orleans, and our parents had a common friend in the man of the great Dr. Morris, Jeff, a former president of the Black Social Worker Organization, and somebody who was just incredibly powerful and inspiring. So when I grew up, we had the benefit of having Kwanzaa during the holiday season. And my parents and many of their friends would take turns hosting on different days of Kwanzaa, and we would go to each other's house. And this great man with this booming voice, Dr. Morris Jeff, would pour libations and speak the names of the ancestors. So this is a part of what this ritual is about. It's about calling the name of those who have gone before us, our ancestors, acknowledging them, bringing the best of their spirit forth to inform us on what we will be doing going forward. So what we will do is anybody.
That was an ancestor, I'm not sure. But they're in the room.
They are in the room. I love it. I love it. So it will be a call and response activity, very much also a part of the culture. You all will say the name of an ancestor, be it a parent, grandparent, great-parent, great-grandparent, somebody who has gone passed on, or just someone who you adore or revere, right? Some great person who has passed on. You all will say that. The rest of us will say, Ashe. Right on. Amen. Right? And the brother here will pour some water into the plant that we have, right? Which shows our groundedness and our connectedness with the earth, with the soil, with nature, and how we bring all that together for a beautiful experience this afternoon. Does that work for you all? Yes. All righty. All right. I will start with the name of my parents, Richard and Oretha Haley. Ashe. Ashe.
Roosevelt Benton and Brian Clements.
Ashe. 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 Ashe.
Kipler Stewart Jr.
Ashe. 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 Thank you all very much.
So we now would like to introduce a video that the Boston chapter worked significantly hard on and had an awesome experience in Roxbury creating in order to truly tell the story of the Black and brown social worker in the community. And it was a spiritual, inspirational, emotional, exciting experience. And so this is just a snapshot of some of what came out of that. And tomorrow, almost pitched this, tomorrow we are also doing a walk in what is now, what was our new name is Dudley, Nubian Square, which was previously Dudley Square, to really be able to replicate some of the walk that we took collectively in this, to make this video. So please enjoy.
1968, we've been on a mission
to uplift and empower you.
We are the Greater Boston Association of Black Social Workers.
Let's disrupt stigma on our quest to achieve liberation.
Unapologetically.
We understand the challenges of code switching.
Finally, someone who truly gets you. Join us in advocating for social justice.
And in return,
build connections with diverse professionals.
attend workshops and conferences to enhance your skills.
Learn about African-centered principles and practices.
Build our community, and together we can enhance real solutions.
Grow your career while making an impact. Don't just make a difference in someone else's life.
Because we haven't forgot about you.
Have you? Become a member.
Shape the future with us.
Whether you're a social worker or passionate about change,
Join our community.
help build a better us and a better you today.
When I think about social work, I think about overcoming racism, overcoming some of the busing challenges we dealt with in the city.
I joined the chapter because somebody invited me to be part of the organization. It had each one bring one recruitment strategy out for that time.
Being a part of Greater Boston Association of Black Social Workers means everything. The code of ethics is truly how I practice in my work.
And so a young lady just said to me, who do you work for? What can you do, right? And I said, we can come back and we can get your story. That's what we can do, and we can share it with the rest of the community in the world.
I didn't know of any other organization where I could come and learn from and get the information that I needed to help me be a better social worker.
So we have a number of folks who participated in that video. So if you could stand so that everyone can recognize you in real life and in person. One of many. All right. So I'm going to switch microphones if that's okay. Testing. Here we go. Thank you. I cannot introduce this woman leaning over. I need to stand up shoulders with pride for the pathway she's set before us. So I am super excited to introduce our keynote speaker, Melissa Smith Haley. Round of applause again and again and again. Melissa Smith Haley is the 14th president, immediate past president of the National Association of Black Social Workers, which currently has 77 chapters and over 2,000 members nationally. Her many high-profile roles at the association include national president, vice president, national member at large, national conference co-chairperson, and national plenary co-chairperson. She also served as the president of the Clark Atlanta University and Metro District of Columbia chapters. Haley navigated NABSW through the challenging COVID-19 pandemic, which under her leadership hosted its first online conference in 2021 and 2022 and returned to in-person events in 2023 with over 500 attendees in Chicago, Illinois. In addition to her work with the NABSW, she currently serves as the Vice President of Program Operations for Volunteers of America, Southeast Louisiana, where she has successfully managed several state and federal contracts totaling over $20 million annually and a staff of over 100. During her over 20-year tenure at the organization, she has held numerous leadership positions. She received her Bachelor of Arts from Xavier University, a Master's of Social Work from Clark Atlanta University, and she is currently a doctoral candidate in the social work program at Morgan State University. She is our Shiro. We are happy to have her in Boston for the first time. And every time she speaks, she shares and puts upon knowledge that leaves us in a space of being inspired and ready to move the work. So welcome, Melissa.
In America today, no black person, except the selfish or irrational, can claim neutrality in the quest for liberation. Given the necessity for committing ourselves to freedom, we, as black social workers, practice in the field of social welfare, we have ideals and principles. So I'm here today to talk to you about the life that I live. I'm not a social worker by day or by night. I am a black woman 24/7, right? I was raised by a social worker. What I do is really who I am. It's really about my purpose. So I definitely want to, in NABSW, when we start our conferences, one of the very first things we do when we come to any community is we give a Zawadi gift, right? So the Zawadi gift, when you come to the community who's invited you, you let them know that you appreciate the community and you bear gifts. So when we go to Africa, and many of us have gone to Africa with NABSW, when you go to a tribe, you take a gift to the people who manage the tribe. So if my husband doesn't mind, I have gifts. I come with gifts because I'm African, you know what I mean? And that's what you do. And so in case you don't know, I'm from, and I always start this way because sometimes my accent tends to annoy people or bother them. I am a chosen Southern girl, like Frankie Beverly would say. I chose the South, but I was raised in St. Louis, Missouri. So y'all know a little bit about country grammar, right? So me and Nellie Mama grew up together. So a little bit about country grammar, but in New Orleans, when you come to people's place, you don't come into nobody's house empty-handed. You bring a gift. So this gift is, it does reflect the community that we serve. It has what Mardi Gras beads on it, right? And it has beads with it. And so Dean, what we would tell you in New Orleans is keep the spice. I guarantee you it's full of flavor, so keep this right. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. So, every social worker, and I'm going to pray this works. All right, it does. And every social worker, we begin with the end in mind, right? So when we start, we begin thinking about what is our purpose? Why do we practice? Why did we choose social work? Surely it's not for the money, right? We didn't make a decision we wanted to be change agents because it was going to make us rich, right? What is our purpose? What can we learn collectively from the past before we move forward? What is that about? And how do we respect and ensure communities have right to self-determination, right? So when you come to communities, how do you know that when you're walking into communities, you are coming in to address what they need and not what you think they need? And when you're a mother, you always know what they think they need, right? Even with my own kids, I know exactly what they need. But when I'm coming in as a practitioner, I'm not your mother. I may be a community leader, but I'm coming in with self-determination. I want to know what it is you want to do and how I can help you get there, right? And I see my brothers and sisters over there. I have to say hello to Keith and Roxanne. They know what they want to do. They know what their purpose are. They come from the trigger life environment, so they come from that environment, and it's very different. That Kaumba is different, and we're going to talk about Kaumba as we're going on in a minute. And then we also want to talk about how we collaborate. How do we work together? How do we work together as individuals? How do we work together as chapters? How do we work together as multiple organizations? How do we do that? And how can we improve outcomes in our community? Because that's why we exist, right? We exist because the disparities are great, right? And when you got disparities going on in your house as a mother, right? When there's something going on with your kids as a father, who do you tell? Nobody but Jesus, right? That ain't nobody business what's going on. That's an in-house conversation. That's when families have these conversations about what's going on. You don't necessarily go out and tell everybody what's going on with your kids, but you will talk about internally what kind of solutions can we have and how can we move forward. So as we did when we began, we acknowledge the ancestors that come before. And it's a great one that comes from this area. And I want y'all to disregard, I put it in there, the H, because it didn't have an H in this morning. I thought I was going to lose sleep. So Phyllis Wheatley survived the Middle Passage. Usually when we pour libations, we acknowledge the hundreds of thousands of Black people who died in the Atlantic Ocean, who did not survive the Middle Passage. Phyllis Wheatley was born in West Africa. She survived the Middle Passage. She was a frail woman, right? She was frail at 7 years old. They didn't think she was going to make it. She went at a low price to people in Boston, the Wheatleys, right? So she was raised right here. Everybody raise your hand if you knew that. All right, everybody gonna know when we leave, right? So Phyllis Wheatley, I didn't know that about her, so I wanted to find out about who she was. She had kaumba. She was creative. She learned how to read and write. She wrote so well. Her poetry was wrote so well that they didn't even believe that she wrote it. Even George Washington said she wrote it. And in order to get the fame and the information that she needed to go out, she had to leave the country. She had to go to London. She had to leave America to experience, to be able to share her message, the creativity that the ancestors gave her. Not only could she read, she was poetic in her communication about liberation in this country. Now, as I continue to do work, and I wanted to talk about kaumba, kaumba is part of something that makes Black social workers special, right? It's the secret sauce, if you will. It's what makes us different. And what's connect us is I thought about Donna Summer, right? Donna Summer, right? She works hard for the money. So hard for it, honey, right? Donna Summer brought out, she came from the Boston lab, right? She came from Boston, and she came from Boston with the mindset that women work hard for liberation. In this area where we fought for women's suffrage and all the women's suffrage struggles that went on, Donna Summers was on that line. And she got inspired for this during Grammy night. You know, she was a Grammy winner, and she was really a significant disco queen. And she walked into the bathroom. When she walked into a bathroom, there was a woman sleeping in the bathroom. She was supposed to be an attendant. And the first thing came to her mind is this sister works hard for her money. And if you see the video, because back in the day, you know, MTV was big time, she was heavy in rotation, and she had all kind of women in different outfits, nursing outfits, male ladies, different women talking about how they work hard. And she, in creativity, she utilized her kaumba to create a message. So in African-centered practice, we do what is called Sankofa, right? Sankofa means to go back and fetch it. Now, if you're looking at this bird is looking backwards, right? Most of the time, you don't see birds looking backwards, but this bird is looking backwards because before he takes off to fly, he needs to know what happened before so he can look for the future. The egg that is separate, is seldomly talked about, that's coming out of the bird's mouth, is representing birth, life, the future. So the egg is about the future. He goes back, and what we call it in social work is a biopsychosocial, right? So when you're talking to your clients, you want to go back. You know, you want to find out where the problem began. You know, what your mama did, what your daddy did, right? But from an African-centered perspective, that is where you want to find out where the strength is, where the strengths come from. How did we survive the Middle Passage? How did we make it through Jim Crow? How did we make it through oppression? How did we make it through the Reconstruction period? It is so important that we do biopsychosocials. When we're looking at our clients individually, collectively, on micro and macro levels, the past is very important to the future and how we operate. So I'm going to give you a case. Malcolm Little. We know a little bit about Malcolm Little, don't we? Malcolm Little grew up, born and raised in Omaha. He was born in Omaha, and if you see the movie with good-looking Denzel Washington in it, right? There's a part you will recognize in that movie, you recognize that his mother had mental health issues. She had mental health issues because her husband was killed. Her husband was killed. She was in Omaha with children, and she did not know how to cope. She didn't have grief therapy, right? She didn't have the supports necessary, and she literally lost her mind. right? She lost her mind. She was institutionalized. Her children were placed in foster homes. Malcolm Little was in a foster home and in a detention center when he broke away from there and he came where? To Boston. To Boston. He just loved it cold, didn't he? Omaha, cold in Omaha, he came to Boston. And this is where he came to Boston, where he had a real good time learning life, but this is where he had an experience, where his life was changed, where he was incarcerated. If you see on the picture that says Massachusetts, it has a number on it. You can see that he was incarcerated while he was here. And when he was incarcerated, that's when he had a life-changing experience. That's when his spiritual encounter, which we call Imani, when that happened. And it changed his life, that he went from a hustler to a liberator, where he learned about changing lives. He learned how to first change his life, how to become more structured and order. Even so much so, they got a street named after him if you go to Dorchester that I cannot wait to see. You know, my husband went without me. I felt cheated yesterday, but he went without me. And that experience was, he had this life-changing experience. So as social workers, we would look at this man from a total strength-based perspective, right? He came through a home. He was put as a result of his mother not being able to function. His mother didn't get support. His mother didn't get social work. What she was institutionalized. And then he, as a child, because his mother could not care for him, he was put in a detention center. And then as a result of incarceration, his life was changed. And he went on to change lives. He became a Pan-Africanist. So you see the picture of him in Ghana. He took that trip with Maya Angelou that was coordinated by a Black social worker. Her name was Alice Wyndham. Alice Wyndham is powerful, a woman, and if you any social worker history, you Google her. She's a history maker. She coordinated this trip. She was together with Maya Angelou. They were roommates during that time, and the social worker coordinated that experience, and he had a life-changing experience. She took that picture of him, and that picture is one of the most famous pictures of Malcolm X, and that's the experience he has. And you see him standing by Kwame Nkrumah. And when you go to Ghana, you will see Kwame Nkrumah. Now that statue is gone, you will see him pointing forward. Because one of the things he said was forward ever, backward never. The power of Pan-Africanism was that African people had dealt with colonialism all over the world. And the thought was, if African people were to unite, that we could be stronger together than we could as individuals. So Malcolm was a representative of what happened in Boston with just an encounter that changed his life. Martin Luther King, he also came to Boston, didn't he? That he came to Boston and he too had a life-changing experience, right? Now, one that was incredible, much like my husband experienced, he met a wonderful woman. While he was in school, right? At the age of 19, he was a second-generation Morehouse graduate, right? His father was a classmate to Howard Thurman, right? His father I tend to believe that he chose Boston because of Howard Thurman. And because of that experience, this is where he too had a life-changing experience. Not only did he get a wife, they had this wonderful embrace, right? This embrace that was capsulized. It has some quirks with it, but we get it, right? And the embrace that took place not only changed his life, it was pivoting for him. He got his doctoral degree. He found out about nonviolence. He moved on to be a national liberator. Because a chance encounter brings about change. He was a student during his change. He understood and learned right here the power of actions and making a difference. At NABSW, we understand the power of students. As students, as educators, as young practitioners, students change our world. Students were the core of the civil rights movement because you couldn't lock kids up. They didn't have juvenile jails. They couldn't keep them in jail, right? But locking kids up didn't stop the income from coming to the home. So they understood the role that children played in liberation. They understood the role that children played in action. And as students, as educators, as leaders, we have to understand we're not recipients. that we are receiving information and knowledge. As a student, I'm more energetic than I was as a practitioner because I'm learning more. I'm learning more from people from different generations. You know, I'm an autumn diva. I got a doctorate at over the age of 50. Can you believe that? Can you believe that? It's not because I need the money, it's because I have work to do. It's because I understand that an organization I love is something that they need. As a president, I understood it was something that they needed, and I needed to go to school so I could learn how to give it to them. I needed to know how I can make a difference because I have a job I can't wait to retire from, right? But it is an opportunity as students to really look at action, and it made a difference. So when Selma, about not too long after he left here, in Selma, it was students who made that walk. It was the Student Nonviolence Coalition. It was CORE that made a difference, that students integrated, got together in order to make change and to see how they can make action and to make difference. So our code of ethics guides us in terms of how we have to do this. Okay, so NASW is the guide nationally, maybe even globally, for social work practice. It is the biggest, largest social work organization in the world. And in order to graduate from school, you have to be able to quote chapter and verse of the Code of Ethics, right? Well, at least pass the test anyway, right? So NABSW, our Code of Ethics is not nearly as long, but it's equally as powerful in terms of what our mandate is to do as individuals, in terms of how we're supposed to operate and what our focus is, what we're doing, why Black social work exists, and what those codes of ethics are. So in 6.0 social and political actions, it tells you that it's your responsibility as practitioners and educators to do social justice, right? As much as I understand that we focus on how to become clinicians, right? And the value of being clinicians, right? And we believe that you can be rich becoming a clinician. I want all the rich clinicians to raise your hand. Where the rich clinicians at, right? And what you have is hard-working clinicians. When you have to see 30 clients a week for 50 minutes, that's hard work. That's real hard work. And for me, I have very short patience. If it takes 26 weeks to figure it out, you're in trouble. You're in trouble if I'm your practitioner. I got about 3 minutes and you need a plan. You know, that's about all I got. And I need you to come with it real quick. Tell me how you gonna do it, whatever. You know, they call me, they got an idea, trigger project. Okay, when can you do it? Hook it up, send the flyers out, I'm ready. But if you calling with something for me to do, oh no, I'm booked, right? I got plenty going on. But it tells you in 6.0 that actions are what we're supposed to be about. When you see, and I work and I have over 1,200 clients under my privy, and they come from different grants. They come from SAMHSA grants. They come from HRSA grants. They come from veteran services, HIV services. They come from mental health services. They all have one common denominator. Anybody know what that is? Poverty. So as a practitioner, when every last client on my caseload has Medicaid or Medicaid eligible, that's telling me that the issue is not mental health. The issue is not HIV. The issue is poverty. And I believe if we can fix poverty, then we can fix a whole lot of these other problems that we got going on. It doesn't take rocket science. We're built on capitalism. It has to be poor people in order for this thing to continue to go. And unfortunately, it's the same people who are at the end of the totem pole, right? When I went to Volunteers of America yesterday and they said to me, socialized Medicaid, I almost fell out. I was like, whoa, what is this y'all got going on, right? Because I am in Louisiana, that we didn't even want to take the Medicaid expansion. They was giving back money. We don't want it. We poor in Mississippi. We don't care. We don't want nothing that you have. But looking at how we can make change, you have to do it simultaneously. Even if you're working in the micro world, you have to look at getting with organizations in order to make macro change. So NASW also gives social work ethical responsibilities. And what it says is commitment to clients, and social workers' primary responsibility is provide the well-being of clients. In general, clients' interests are primary. However, social workers' responsibility to the larger society or specific legal obligations of many on limited occasions supersede the loyalty owned by clients, right? It goes on to say in the next line, it says self-determination. Social workers respect and promote the rights of their clients. So I want to say not just clients, because clients is an individual thing. Social workers have to respect the rights of communities, right? We don't just service on a micro level. We service on a meso level. And as a meso practitioners, you have to respect the communities you go into. When you come into somebody's house on a micro level, you don't just sit down. You asking, you be seated. If somebody tell you when you come in the house to take off your shoes, you take off your shoes or you go out the door. You have to operate in order the way that the community operates. And if the community is competent, and the community has the ability to address their own issues, what you're supposed to do is say, if I can help you in any way, let me know. But I don't need you to tell me what it is that we need to do. Because I know that. And I know that, and I want to ensure that we have the individuals to do it. And not only do I know it, I'm vested in it. Because this maze of despair is disparities that are overrepresented by African people in America. In every one of those boxes, you see African people, people of African descent, are represented in disparities. Housing, overly incarcerated, undereducated, lack of resources and revenue. All of these things are disparities. Nobody cares about that more than me. Nobody cares about that more than many of us because we are vested and we are impacted by the disparities that happen in this country. So therefore, we're motivated in order to make change. CSWE agrees. CSWE talks about African people, and thank God I can't see it because I can't read it all. I mean, my God, the words are so small, right? But what it says, in essence, it talks about the African experience across the diaspora. It talks about the responsibility of institutions to teach about the experience, to look at what some of the solutions, to ensure self-determination, and to ensure that we understand what's going on in the community. It's tragic that we have people who graduate all the way through their MSW and have never had a teacher of color. That's a tragic experience because then you go with the mindset that people of color are recipients of services and not deliverer of services, not educators of services. It is not the experience. No one should have that experience. No one has the experience of going K through master's the program and having a predominant and going to a predominantly white school or not and not having a white teacher. So why is it that you can graduate in this? We have to stop that because we are doing a disservice to our practitioners because they don't see people of color in any other light. That we are still defined by fake news as opposed to knowing that we have been consistent contributors. I told my daughters went to Tulane charter school and they send a list home of what the students have to tell. So I told very nicely, I said, don't send another list without black people on it. There's nothing that you're teaching that black people haven't done. Explorers, we did that. Veterans, we do that. Change agents, we do that. So what you need to do is learn more so you're aware of what it is, the contributions of every individual in this, every community has something that they can offer. So the power of Pan-Africanism is real. Connecting to Pan-Africanism, where African people need to do this. So NABSW for 43 years went on international trips so we can have the opportunity to see African people across the world. So this year, after the pandemic, we stopped for several years. 95 social workers and change agents went to Ghana this year. It was amazing. It was an amazing experience. it was a conference, right? It was a get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, get on the bus and learn conference till 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening. And we had 18 years old to 84 years old on this experience, because it matters so much when you're in these communities and you see how things happen, how things operate, how they tell you in the communities, in the School of Social Work, and in the Kwame Nkrumah School of Social Work, which is a school, because they have free education. And if you can go to A schools, and they tell you they don't even practice clinical social work. All of their practice is generalist social work, because they're about making change. They're not focused on mental health issues. They're not focused on medication for treatment. What they're trying to do is change their community. When we talk about chronic diseases, they call them Western diseases. So they say, if food is connected to the Western diseases. When I asked him about Alzheimer's, he was like, no, we don't have Alzheimer's. They even have colors for their rituals, and you go to funerals. So you only wear black if someone died under the age of 70. So over the age of 70, you lived a great life, so you wear black and white. Over the age of 100, you wear white. So I was like, well, how many people do you know that live over the age of 100? Oh, several. Because of the different commitment to indigenous cultures and communities that have not been a part of our experience. So it's more for us to learn. So when you go to W.E.B. Du Bois's home, you will see the African leaders across the world. And our vice president, Kathy Lobes, is from Cape Verde. She's Cape Verdean, and she taught me so much about Cape Verde. Well, when we went there, when she saw this brother on the wall, we had to take pictures with him. He was a revolutionary. He was a Pan-Africanist. He was Cape Verdean, and he made a difference in the community. And from his experience, there is a whole community here in Boston, whole community here in Rhode Island, in terms that the rest of the country doesn't know much about, right? When you talk, they don't know that it's on the coast of West Africa. They don't know that it's closer to Senegal than any of us have ever been, right? It's an experience that we have to learn about, and it makes a difference. And when you go to this home, this is where he is actually buried. And at the foot of his tomb, at the top of his tombstone is Alpha Phi Alpha, right? That is at the top of his tombstone. And at the bottom is Clark Atlanta University, which is the oldest black school of social work in the world. I always say that because I'm an alumni, you know what I'm saying? As an alumni, you got to say that at least once every presentation, right? But also Harvard, which is he spent time at Harvard. He taught at Harvard. So W.E.B. Du Bois made a difference and made an experience in this community as well. So the mission of NABSW is deeply rooted in the principles of Ma'at in the Nguzo Saba. And when you look at the Nguzo Saba, it talks about Umoja, which is unity, Uji Chakalia, which is self-determination, Ujama, which is collective work and responsibility, Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility, Ujama, which is cooperative economics, Nia is purpose, Kaumba is creativity, and Imani is faith. These are social work principles and practices, right? These are also principles and practices which I live by. I wake up every day on Nia. I wake up 100% on Nia. What is it the Creator wants me to do today? What is it, my role? Who, in the spirit of Eugene, who's going to help me do it? Who I'm going to call? Who collective work responsibility that I'm work with? And everything that I do, I operate. So it's not just something that I can kind of go to. It is a way of life. It is a way of practice. It is the way that I operate, and it helps me to be able to function. Ma'at is also another principle. It's an Egyptian. It's an Egyptian principle, and it's based on truth, justice, righteousness, balance, order, reciprocity, and harmony. And if you have an opportunity to go to the National Association of Black Social Workers African-Centered Academy, it is a year-long study, and Dr. Akosawa was the administrator for that for about 15 years, 10 years. 10 years? It was all free. However long it was free. So she was trying to get in heaven on that alone, and I think she got a ticket or two. But the whole year study, and it primarily is advanced practitioners, primarily is master's level, master's level and doctoral level practitioners, because you go through a study where you're learning about African-centered practice. Things that I'm talking about, you're learning about people who studied this, how to operate in this venue, and going to this practice helps us. It now bears the name of our 7th president, Leonard Dunston. So as I began, I started with the NABSW Code of Ethics. And the NABSW Code of Ethics says the word black 20 times. 20. And it's not by happenstance, because what would normally be what you saw CSWE, that was the work of a task force. A task force got together and said, what is it that we need to do? We have to address the crisis that's going on with African people. We have to address colonization. We have to address that. So what you saw from CSWE was an appropriate academic response, okay? What you see in this code of ethics is an aggressive mandate for black practitioners to work and to focus not as a task force, but as a way of life on what impacts the community in which we live and serve. It is to look out for your self-interest. Do you have to be black to be a member of NABSW? Answer is, yes. Of course. Of course. Because this is an opportunity when you can have those kitchen conversations, when you don't have to explain, when you don't have to justify. I do that at NAD. I do that at SWERV. I do that at CSWE. I do that in task force. But NABSW is a time for African practitioners to sit down and exhale, where we get together and we figure out internally what it is we need to do to be able to strategically move forward. And it helps because we collaborate on many ways. But in our organization, it's extremely important that we work together and we have these conversations. There are black leaders in social work practice across the country. Some of the biggest social work organizations right now are led by African people. The woman on your far right, anybody know who that is? Dr. Stacey Hardy. Dr. Stacey is the new president or CEO of ASWB, right? I've met and talked to Stacey for a very long time, and it is harder to beat up on Stacey than it is her predecessor, I tell you. It was a whole lot easier, right? But she has a heavy cross to bear. She has some serious challenges. She has things that have to be reckoned with, that she has to deal with as it pertains to ASWB. When I met the dean on April 16th. It was the anniversary of the letter from Birmingham jail. The letter from Birmingham jail had been written 62 years prior. And the letter from Birmingham jail, if you know anything about it, it was a letter that was written in response to a call for unity, which I believe the letter was. There were several white clergymen in Birmingham who wrote an open letter to Martin Luther King, and he said, we need you to wait. Right? We need you to be patient. We're working together. We praying about it. And, you know, black people, we like to play about it. Praying about it is good, right? But it is not a halt. It is an action, right? And so he took and wrote about a 20-page handwritten letter in response to this. And so Stacey and I very often, Dr. Hardy, we have the conversation of you've got to reckon with why 90% of white women pass this test on the first time and less than 50% of black female. We got to ask that question. We certainly, I'm not saying, because we know who's knocking on them doors, right? We know who's making a difference in them houses. We know social workers, black social workers have been practicing ever since Du Bois, right? So why is it that we're having a problem with the test? And that's a question that she's had to struggle with her whole time as president. And I don't have an answer to the question. Now, my answer to the question is that there's something wrong with the test, right? Or we not testing the right stuff. Something got to be wrong with the test, because I know that we have African-American people who study, who make A's, who practice. Standardized tests historically been a method to which to discriminate. We have to come up with other ways to do that. We know that CPAs do it, right? They don't sit down for one test. They can take it in modules. You can take a CPA exam for 18 months. You take it module at a time and you pass. It's not no one time sits all. And pretty much if the clinicians had to take it again, they wouldn't pass it. It's not even the same test, but they are competent, right? They are out there operating. So Stacey has things that they have to contend with. The brother in the middle, Dr. Anthony Street. Anthony is now the president and CEO to NASW. Anthony has a bachelor's degree. He has a master's degree. He has an MBA. He has a PhD. Now, if you have been reading the blogs about Dr. Street in the last couple of months, you wouldn't think he had none of that, right? You would think he had a GED or elemental P or something of that nature. This man is an author. He owns a whole firm. And his juvenile record has taken center stage. As social workers, we should have a problem with that. We should have a problem with that you can have a record at the age of 16, 17, 18, 19, and then you can go on in all of this time and go all the way to get a PhD, to get an author, and that would come back and be a problem for you at this particular point. We all should have a problem with that. And that means that no matter what you charge with, you forever convicted of a crime that you can't get rid of. If you've ever encountered Anthony Street, you have encountered a social work phenomenon. He's energetic. He's a lot younger than me, right? But he comes through with something that helps young people understand that it's cool to be a social worker. It's cool to have knowledge and education, but it is problematic that you cannot outgrow these labels and still be treated as a black man, which is substandard in America, which is problematic. So then you see on the far left, if you over here, and you will see Dr. Renata Hetherington-Jones. Now, what I found interesting about the president, the 15 presidents in the National Association of Black Social Workers, you'll be hard to find out that she's a doctor, right? Because the things that matter the most to her are what you see up there. She's a mother, a grandmother, a griot, a difference maker. She's a change agent. She's going to come to you more as a auntie than she is coming to you with all of the knowledge as an author and a presenter that she is, because as black social workers, our focus tends to be different. Our audience tends to be different. I'm not trying to get published. I'm trying to get liberated. I don't care what nobody think about what it is I'm writing about, but the people that I'm here to serve. And most of the people that I'm here to serve are not reading Say's journal. Although I seem to read it every 5 minutes, I get tired of Say's journal, right? So you can't, but it is a difference in terms of what are you trying to do? Are you trying to create a name for yourself, or are you trying to create change for your community? And that has become important. And that is also a problem for black professionals getting tenured. Black professionals can't get tenured because they cannot break the barriers of the racist structural publication system in order to get tenured. So you don't get published enough, you can't get tenured, which is problematic. You could be the best social worker in the world. My father didn't get tenured at WashU. After 15 years of teaching, he was one of the best social workers. He got the best evaluation. What did he do? He sued. He won. He won because he knew that the process was discriminatory. When I went to school free because my daddy won the case. When he died, somebody from WashU came and gave a proclamation. He had been getting checks from WashU for over 30 years because he didn't take the settlement. It was about the principle. Over $300,000 because every month when he got that check from WashU, it was a label of overcoming discrimination. But we have to look at who our audience is, who we want to serve. So I'm going to move real quick and I'm going to talk about why we should organize. And number one is personal. right? It's personal. You have a family experience. Something happened to somebody. This is why we organize. We organize because we come from a marginalized community. We want liberation. We do this because we organize because we want to transform the community, and we organize because we be mad. You look at the news, you just get mad. You're like, really? Is this what we doing now? Is this still going on? Is it what's today? You know what I'm saying? We still talking about Kamala because she's a woman and she's black. Shouldn't this be happening? I mean, how many presidents have we had? It's time. It's time for a woman after all this time. Obviously, the men haven't been doing it right. It's time to give a woman a chance. What more damage can we got? We have to get this done. So ultimately, you get upset and you get tired, and these are some of my sheroes who got tired and got mad, and they made differences. And the first sister you will see is my mother-in-law. Her name is Aretha Castle Haley. She has 4 sons. I married the best-looking one, and when I went to New Orleans, if you go to New Orleans, and many of you will see a street that bears her name. And the street that bears her name was the street as the president of CORE that they desegregated. So they sat at those lunch counters. They were treated real bad. They were arrested. As a result of them being arrested, she was one of 4 people who were cited in the case that overturned discrimination at law counters in New Orleans. So a street is named after her. She died at the age of 48 years old. And when my husband tells you, I never met her. So my father was never impressed with any man that I ever dated, right? So when I told him that I was bringing somebody to Dr. Jeff's house who was a college, they were college friends. They went to Atlanta University, because it was Atlanta University then. They went to Atlanta University together. So I come in with my husband, and Dr. Jeff saw my husband. He said, Fred, only the ancestors can bring Fred's daughter with Aretha's son. So that, when the elders conduct, right then, I was like, I got a husband, yes. Right? The only man my dad ever spoke to, right? But it was a connection. Who knew? I had no idea that somebody who would be that significant in my life, way in New Orleans, would be that significant in his life. So that's the kind of connections that we talk about that the ancestors did. So we talk about transformation, changing identities, and in July, we have a Harambe Vision, and Harambe Vision is NABSW's magazine that comes out twice a year. And it came out on the anniversary of the response that Martin Luther King did to the letter from Birmingham jail, was Why We Can't Wait. So he wrote a book 60 years ago in July, and the book was called Why We Can't Wait, where he identified why we couldn't wait. So as I ended my presidency, I put Malcolm and Martin on there because they go together. They like, it's like peanut butter and jelly. They go together. They just mix. And then who you also will see is the 7th president, who our African Center Circle is named after, who is Leonard Dunstan, who transitioned while we were in Ghana on the shores that he loves. So having those 3 men there means a lot to us collectively with Malcolm and Martin. But as social workers, Leonard Dunstan was a change agent. And he taught me the power of making it personal. I'm not just a practitioner. I'm not just a practitioner. When I come in your house, I have 0 boundaries. 0. Like when I was in school, they didn't teach boundaries at Clark Atlanta University. Didn't know nothing about it. When they come to me, oh Miss Melissa, I have boundaries. I gotta Google it. Because I don't know what boundaries are, because I'm connected to the people that I serve. I don't have a clinical barrier and distance from you. Your outcomes are my outcomes. If you don't succeed, we don't succeed. If the program fails, people don't get what they need. If we don't have the resources there, we got to do what they need to do. So my clients are the people who do the work. I got to make sure you get the money. I have no boundaries. I walk in those systems, so I understand the concept, but it ain't African. So the Wellness Warrior campaign was my response to actions. And I use wellness because it was during COVID, and each year we talked about if you practice yoga, and I pseudo practice yoga, like in the chair every now and again? There are warrior poses, right? And those warrior poses, as you advance from warrior 1, warrior 2, warrior 3, you get stronger in your stance. You get stronger in your position. You get stronger as you move forward. So the warrior poses taught us about action. We focus on health, behavioral health, financial well-being, spiritual well-being, community, and organizational well-being. And utilizing those concepts and the principles of Ma'at, we talk about actions. So actions is not just something you do. As a practitioner, actions, you have to be accountable for the people that you serve, accountable to your community. You have to collaborate, just like we are collaborating right now. You have to collaborate with organizations. You have to come to the table with those organizations. You have to come with your perspective that you may not be able to come with when you represent other organizations. But through NABSW, the way that I represent is different at Volunteers of America because I'm representing a different entity. But when I come as the president of NABSW, the immediate past president, as the finance chair, I'm coming from a different lens, and I assert it accordingly. Transformation is the goal. We are not trying to maintain the status quo. We want to be completely different. We want to look different as techno money, right? Apple Pay is different. You know, it's not the same kind of cash, but it still gets the job done. We want to transform. We want to be innovative. And the only way you know that what you're doing is working is by measuring outcomes. It's one thing to think you're doing a good job, but you got to have the data to demonstrate what it is you're doing, the frequency, the duration, the outcomes are equally as important. And to be a strength-based practitioner, you got to be solution-focused. I know we got problems. Don't come to me with problems. I need solutions. When there's something going wrong with my team, you know what I do? I have a solution session. I call all the geniuses in the room. I say, look, this is the problem. This is what we're trying to get. 80% of the time, they have the solution. And so I said, why you didn't tell me? Why you didn't ask me? So now they don't even know you recognize that you have problems. So when you have solution sessions, it's important to do this. So now, we want to ask the same questions. What is your purpose, which is Nia? What can we learn from the past in order to move forward, which is Sankofa? How do we work respect communities, have the right to self-determination? That's Uji Chakalia. And how can we collaborate to assist with disenfranchised community reach their goals? That is Ujima. And how can we improve health and equity? That's Umoja. So collectively, we have to work together to make change. So when you go to the website, you will see this slide right here. And I want you to be clear that there is a purpose and solution for NABSW and what we do. And when you see the P, it's about providing safe space. Because some of the kitchen conversations we have, you can't have those in your institutions. You can't have those in an organization. You need a collective voice to do that. Male, female, black, white. You need to be able to speak collectively with one voice. You have to understand historical racism exists. It's real. Historical racism didn't just come up. It's not something we making up. It's not something we pretending about. You have to understand the impact that it has on. You have to be clear that social work practitioners and pioneers have existed for years. As long as social work, this is part of a series that I do. But I do a whole series on Ida and Jane, right? So it is no reason in the world schools of social work should talk about Jane Addams and don't talk about Ida B. Wells. Ida B. Wells has been resurrected since 1920 because in 2020, they utilized Ida B. Wells for women's suffrage. The thing that they don't say, you see Ida B. Wells, you see the women of Delta Sigma Theta standing right there with their white sisters talking about voting, right? So they were fighting for white women to be able to vote. White women won that battle in 1920. Black women did not. Black women did not win that right to vote. They did not have it. That's why Fannie Lou Hamer was sitting up there because she was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And she told them in Mississippi that y'all was wrong and she made a difference. But it was a change and it made a difference doing that response. We understand that we have to respond in a culturally appropriate manner, right? Cultural humility is not a class. It's a life. It's a way of life. You come in, you got to be committed to lifelong learning. If you said you want to learn the internet, you can't do anything right now, right? If you saying you're not going to learn AI, you way behind the game. You have to learn what's out there, and you have to be able to respond to people in a way that they respect and in a way that they appreciate. If you got a client, unfortunately, in our current climate, that the only way we can help clients is if we diagnose them. So you can't qualify for housing. You get on a 20,000 person waiting list if you don't have a disability. If you get a diagnosis of depression, now you're on a 5,000 person waiting list. So a lot of times people are getting diagnoses they don't need because they are poverty stricken, that they are subject to this. But as practitioners, we're trying to help them, because if we don't help them, there's no way that they can get the service they need. So it's a catch-22. When you look at evidence-based practice, is another issue on there. And my issue with evidence-based practices, they have no evidence in the black community. Do you know how long they told us, how long we had to learn about Freud? I know all of y'all learned about Freud. Didn't y'all learn about Freud? We all learned about Freud. I had to take tests on Freud. Now you telling me it ain't real, right? You mean the id, the ego, and the superego, that's not a real thing? Oh, you didn't know that? What was his subject? White women in Austria. We have nothing in common. So when you're talking about evidence-based practice, you cannot discount the experience of African people. If you only have evidence-based practice that work with non-people of color, then you're discounting the whole trauma and experience. So yeah, it may work with somebody who don't have the institutional racism that we have to deal with, but our experience is different. Our experience is real deal. And look, most people not going to therapy anyway. If you call it therapy, they done, okay? If you want to say, girl, let's talk. We can have a conversation. Oh, but you want to be my therapist? No, thank you. That's Jesus' job, and I'm gonna let him do that. I'm gonna let him do that. I even tried therapy. My dad transitioned, and the therapist told me I was intimidated. She said, well, why you asking me that? What that got to, what does that have to do with my daddy dying, ma'am? You know, she told me I was intimidated. I said, no, I'm flunked out of therapy. I can't. I said, I didn't even try. I wasn't even good at it. But when you look, I'm not going to go over each one of them, but I do want you to know that there is a purpose for what we do and what Black social work is about. There is a solution. Every Black practitioner, change agent, and the difference about NABSW is you don't have to have a bachelor's in social work. You don't have to have a master's in social work, right? Because we understand the discriminatory practices that are involved in education. Y'all have some really great change agents who can't get loans anymore because they flunked out, right? You got people who don't want to take loans. You know, you got people who was blessed. Biden took $99,000 of my loans just away like that. So, you know, the next round is coming. Keep prayer up. You know what I mean? But we understand if you commit to the code of ethics and you're eligible, you can be a practitioner. You can be a member of the National Association of Black Social Workers. So if I have taught you anything, if I blessed you in any way, I want you to understand connections matter. I want you to understand that y'all are standing on some real precious ground when you're walking on Boston. You are standing where Malcolm was. You are standing where Phyllis Wheatley was. You're standing where Martin Luther King was. You were here where Coretta Scott King is. You were here where Howard Thurman was. This is a change-able community. I am blessed to have come to your community and had the opportunity to meet you. And it has been a pleasure to learn what the strength capacity is of African people across the country. So Asante Sana for allowing me to come, which is thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, those of you know me know I'm emotional. Any minute. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you. So next we are going to, I'm going to introduce our panelists, and then as I introduce them, I'm going to ask them to take their rightful seats in the front of the room. Melissa, I'm going to ask you once you catch your breath to be the first one to do so you get to choose your seat. You know, this is important. You already had it in mind. All right. So I am going to introduce the rest of our panelists. So I would like to introduce our president of the Greater Boston Association of Black Social Workers and BUSSW lecturer, Malika Mims, MSW, LICSW. Malika is a dedicated social work professional with 20 years of experience in human services. She holds a BSW and MSW from Wheelock College, in parentheses, Boston University. We have a merger. We are all one family now. And currently pursuing a doctorate in social work at Morgan State University. Malika's career spans clinical practice, community organizing, and leadership roles in diverse settings, including mental health and long-term care. She is the founder of, quote, Drop a Jewel with Malika, quote, where she focuses on educating and empowering communities through therapy, consulting, podcasting, and professional development. As president of the Greater Boston Association of Black Social Workers, GBABSW, Malika leads social justice initiatives and champions community empowerment. At Boston University School of Social Work, BUSSW, which I have here on my nails for everyone. Represent. She teaches MSW students in ethics, racial justice, clinical practice, and mental health policy, both online and in person, and serves as the chair of the alumni board. Claps and cheers to Miss Malika. Our next wonderful individual that we're going to introduce is our student, BUSSW, Amanda Washington. Prior to arriving at BU, Amanda was a high school teacher and worked in college admissions. She previously earned a master's degree in Spanish from Middlebury. Amanda is pursuing an MSW/EDM dual degree from the School of Social Work in Wheelock College of Education and Human Development. Woo-hoo. She has been a member of the Greater Boston Association of Black Social Workers since December of 2023 and serves on the Student Affairs Committee and also attended the conference with all of us last year. Our next student is Marcus Shaw. Flowers for Marcus Shaw. Marcus is a second-year MSW student on the part-time clinical track at BUSSW. Marcus also works at BU as the undergraduate academic advisor and research assistant with BUSSW and African American Studies, right? Marcus is certified in mediation coaching and Reiki healing. He is completing his first year as a proud member of NABSW Greater Boston Chapter. Cheers to Marcus. And last but not least, Ine Oga. O'Gagan. Ine O'Gagan. Ine has been a proud member of NABSW since 2013, starting while being an MSW student at Simmons University. We have some Simmons folks in the building. Where she served as the treasurer for the Simmons student chapter. Ine joined Greater Boston ABSW in 2015 after graduating. She has served in various capacities in GBABSW, including chair of the Education and Training Committee, past president of the chapter, and currently serves as the chair of the Student Affairs Committee. At the 2024 NABSW conference, Ine co-presented a workshop titled, quote, Spirituality and Social Work, end quote, and it was amazing. Ine is currently the Senior Director of Scholar Services at the Wiley, am I saying that correct, Wiley? Wiley Network, and a proud graduate of HU, Howard University, where she earned her BS in Political Science, Northeastern University, NU, MS Human Services. I didn't hear NU, Ine, from there. Like, I'm an alum. Anyway, and Simmons University, where she earned her MSW. Let's give Ine a shout out. All right, let me clear my eyes from my tears there. All right, so I was going to do this lovely introduction of NABSW, but since that whole presentation did all of that, I'm just going to go ahead and move right on. I'm gonna skip right on. Let me just flip my page. Give me one moment. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to relocate over here if that's okay, so that we can turn our attention to listen to our speakers. So this question is for each panelist. So I will read the question, and then if we can go down each person at a time, you should have, so there should be a microphone down there you want to turn on. Then you all have this microphone, and I'm going to give you this microphone. So I'll use this microphone while we're waiting for the microphone. No worries. So the question is, to start, I'd like each of you to share your thoughts on the importance of building professional networks, especially for Black social workers in environments where their contributions may not always be fully recognized. How do these networks support both individual career growth and the collective empowerment of our communities? Amanda.
Great question. And I think in Melissa's presentation and speech earlier, she really highlighted the importance of this opportunity, especially for Black individuals. Just networking in general is so important. I'm thinking from my perspective as a student, right? I'm still on my journey in social work and education and figuring out what that's going to look like. And just having expertise and connection and affirmation from the wonderful people at GBABSW and just in the nationally who I was able to connect with at the conference has been so key. And I know I'll continue to draw upon their expertise during my time as a student. I have a few more months to go. And also, especially in these organizations, that's a place right where you can have those real conversations, and that's really important. It's a place for me that feels comfortable, it feels affirming. Oh, hold it closer. Okay. And it feels like it's also a place right where we can think of solutions that are strength-based, that are going to draw from the strengths of communities, of Black people, right, and really think through that perspective.
Dana, can you ask the question again?
I sure can. I was thinking about that. I said, give
me like
this.
One question at a time.
Yes. To start, I like to ask each of you to share your thoughts. All right, on the professional. So what's the importance of building professional networks, especially for Black social workers, in environments where their contributions may not always be fully recognized?
Yeah, thank you. So I think Melissa hit on a lot of this earlier, but especially as an educator, which is really important for me, I really encourage all of our students to make connections and really define what that means. Because a lot of our students sometimes, and a lot of us as professionals, often feel disconnected. And so having a space where you could talk about that disconnect, where you could talk about how you're feeling today, where you don't have to explain constantly, right? Because we already have enough paperwork to do, right? So we don't have time to spend on explaining and defining these things that we want people should already know. So I think that the most important thing is to build connections and let people have, take on the principle of self-determination and determining what that looks like and what that is for their self, and instead of allowing the status quo to define that for them. And a lot of us as practitioners, we're burnt out by the time we get into these spaces of MSW programs, right? Second year, first year. By the time you get to me in ethics, you're burnt out. And I love it because I'm like, yes, this is my time to connect with you, to engage. But if people don't have that connection, I worry because I'm like, how are you going to go connect with the community? How are you going to connect with the people? How are you going to connect with your family? And so that concerns me. So when you have a space where you feel safe, where you feel You don't have to constantly explain what you're learning constantly, because when you come to GBABSW and NABSW, it's not just having community and space. You're learning 24. I mean, I felt like I was at a mini conference just now, right? Like, and it felt real, it felt authentic, and you could have stayed up there another 2 or 3 hours, and we would have all been just like this, right? So I think that's a really important aspect, that we get to use self-determination to define what that looks like for ourselves. I hope that answers that part of the question.
That answers that part of the question. Thank you. And the next part, it would be, how do these networks support both individual career growth and collective empowerment of our communities, which you touched on?
Yeah, I think I touched on that. Yeah. All right.
So I did speak about this, but Margaret Penn, who is an ancestor, and I always, I've learned so much. I've been a member of NABSW for 30 years. So I joined as a student. My father was a pioneer member. So I grew up in NABSW literally long before I knew I was a social worker. But Margaret Penn didn't drive. And she didn't fly. And so NABSW back in the time would have steering committee meetings, and they would be quarterly across the country. And she would catch a train from Connecticut to wherever we were, right? And so she said, people ask me why I come quarterly to NABSW by train. And she said, because it helps me reaffirm that I'm not crazy.
Right. That part.
See, because a lot of times when you're the only person in the room, you know what I mean? And you hear what they're saying, and you either say they don't get it, or you're saying something and they're not getting it. When you're in NABSW, everybody gets it. So you don't have to be the voice. You could say, she said that, okay? I needed to hear that. So it really, for me, it reaffirms that there are other like-minded individuals who are having the same challenges in their environments, and that we need to work collectively, as the Nguzo Saba tells us, in order to ensure and to bring about change.
Thank you.
Thank you all for sharing. May I get permission from the elders to begin speaking? Thank you all so much. And so I'm just so grateful to be a part of NABSW and to be a part of BUSSW, because I
go closer, because we want to hear you.
Can y'all hear me now?
We can.
All right. First and foremost, thank you all for attending. Thank you all for being here. I am so grateful to be a part of NABSW as well as BUSSW, because it feels as though I am so affirmed in this space, because no matter what I share, no matter who I am accepted for being myself, and I'm just grateful to be here. And a story that I can tell about just the power of NABSW is that there was a moment where I was trying to sort out what internship was I going to be able to do, and it was looking like I was not going to have one at the moment. And I had thankfully been in touch and been in contact with some elders, Dr. Jackson, who has her own counseling program called Essence of Pearls Counseling. And I reached out to Malika as well to just say, hey, I'm having this struggle with this internship, and I really need a connection, an internship, something of that nature that I can be a part of, that I can learn from. And Malika was able to connect me with Dr. Jackson as well. And I asked her, and she was willing to take me on for that internship. I'm so grateful to her. And being in this internship has been powerful, because it's two Black doctors, one is a Black social worker, the other is a licensed mental health practitioner, clinical psychologist, Dr. Reed. But it's just powerful to learn from them specifically, because they have so much knowledge. They are sharing things with me that I will have for the rest of my career, literally, on how to do notes, how to just operate with intention, and how to do this work for our people so that we can improve our conditions and whatnot. And I'm just incredibly grateful, as always, to be a part of this incredible organization, this incredible community. And yeah, happy to be here and listen and share.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you. Could you read the question one more time?
I sure can, Nene. Okay, so share your thoughts on the importance of building professional networks, especially for Black social workers in environments where their contributions may not always be fully recognized.
Thank you. So first, I think about what Melissa was saying, and I think about sense of belonging. Immediately comes to mind. I think we talk about networking. And I think about being a Black social worker, and I think about community more so, and how that is really kind of like the foundation of being a Black social worker. And I think being at Howard, for me, it was definitely a sense of belonging, of not being the only one in the classroom, not having more, seeing professors who look like me, having classmates who look like me, going outside and walking out in the cafeteria, and it's, so many Black faces, Black and brown faces, right? Which is, for me, coming from New Bedford, Massachusetts, was fairly rare, even though it's, diverse, but it was not as diverse as people make it to be. So being on an HBCU campus definitely made a world of a difference. So coming to Simmons to get my MSW, I remember really I'm good. I have my community, I have my network. I was working full time, I was going part time to school, and was I'm just here to go take my classes and get my degree. And that was it. And I remember going to orientation at Simmons, and those who know Dr. Johnny Hamilton Mason,
yes,
she literally hounded all the Black students with a piece of paper, pen and paper, like, you're a Black student. You should join ABSW. And I was like, okay. She's like, put your name here, email address. And I was, so there were just things that started happening that I was like, oh, actually, I think this is another community and foundation and a family that I can lean in and lean onto, and taking that journey together, for those 3 years. And having professors, Dr. Gary Bailey is here, and having him as a professor,
shout out to
well.
Dr. Barry Bailey.
Yes,
Gary Bailey,
who look out for you, and who call you out, who call you in, and hold you accountable. But I think that's also part of the network, the community, the foundation, and also just, tapping into the elders. So post-graduation, Simmons, I remember having there was a Simmons ABSW graduation for the graduates, and I think it was Jean and probably Cheryl, maybe Nancy, but came to Simmons for our graduation to support us. They didn't know who we were, but they knew that they knew where we needed to go afterwards, which is why they were there. But, just that Sankofa, just reaching back and pulling forward and, bringing us along and, again, pouring into us and supporting us, challenging us, saying, you need to present, you need to do this. And just always having that, I think, is just so important and so key and so crucial. And as we learn that together, you have, other social workers that you meet along the way, along the journey, and it helps pour into where you want to go next, and then encouraging each other on the way as well is also just very, very important too. So I think that is, again, networking, I think community, I think family, and it just keeps growing.
Thank you, Ine. Okay, Amanda. As a student preparing to enter the field of social work, how do you see the role of organizations like NABSW and GBABSW in helping students build professional networks that are both supportive and culturally affirming? What are challenges do you think students of African ancestry face in academic and professional settings? And how can these organizations help address them?
Great questions. So I think when I joined GBABSW last December, I didn't really realize how much I'd been needing a space like that until I was a part of it. And I was like, wow, it was kind of the answer to some of the feelings and questions and rumblings that I'd had kind of internally, but that I wasn't able to put a word to, words to until I was able to speak with these wonderful people. While my studies have been a really positive and educational experience, and I feel so excited about where I'm going in the field of social work, especially now that I know I have so many amazing mentors to talk to as I'm building that path, it can be a little bit isolating. Sometimes I'm in class and I'm one of few, if I'm lucky, or I'm the only Black or brown face in the space. Sometimes it feels like the readings that I'm doing are taking the perspective of a white practitioner, and they're assuming that the client is going to be a person of color, Black or brown. And that's really confusing for me, right? Because it makes me feel or question, am I only supposed to be the client? Am I not supposed to be the practitioner? Where do I fit here? I'm in the class, and I don't see my perspective represented. And so that can feel confusing, upsetting, just kind of making me question what am I doing here and where do I belong? And so I think that's where GBABSW and NABSW comes along, because I'm in these spaces and I'm like, yes, there are people who have been doing the work, right? I am joining this really powerful legacy, and I feel inspired, like I can do this, and I'm going to continue along. Hopefully I'm going to try, to do as well as you all are, continue these
wait, we're
amazing
going to
things.
rewind.
So yeah.
I'm not going to try. I will.
I will do.
I will.
So I think spaces like this, right, I feel like, yes, I can do this. I have a community to draw from. And there's these amazing Black social workers in Boston and across the United States. I'm part of this beautiful community, and I'm part of this work that we're doing. And that is incredible.
Thank you, Amanda. I will.
I will.
I am. Okay, my next question for you, Amanda, is you recently attended an NABSW conference. How many people were at the conference? Show of hands, raise those hands high. I see a lot of people in here. And so conference with support from BU School of Social Work. How was that experience? What value do you think such conferences bring to students? How important is it for institutions to support student participation in these kind of events? And what impact did it have on you personally and professionally?
Oh my gosh, this conference was so incredible. And the funny thing is, I've known that I was going to do this panel, I think, since day 2 of the conference, where Malika said, all right, so we're signing you up for a conference. You're to talk about your experience, right? So I've had like months and months and months to think of a way to talk about this conference, and it really is difficult to describe with words, but I'm going to try for those of you who haven't been able to attend. But it was an educational experience. I built professional networks. I learned a lot through panels. But more importantly, I think it was like truly a soul-altering experience in a really positive way. Again, I saw myself as a part of this amazing community right now doing the work of social work, and felt really connected, which maybe you saw with the libation opening at the beginning of this, right in a long line of ancestors doing social work, even before it was called social work. And that is just so powerful to be like, yes, I found my people, like, this is my place, and I'm a part of this work. I was so grateful that BU gave me the opportunity, financially supported me in being able to attend. Had I not had the opportunity to get, flights and hotels and conference fees paid for, I'm a grad student, I would not have been able to come up with the funds, and I would not have been able to attend. I might not have been as connected with NABSW and GBABSW. And I feel like just being able to have that experience, right, professionally was so important, because I'm part of this organization for life, which is amazing, right? Whether I'm in Boston or where I move somewhere else. And that is incredible.
Absolutely. Well said. And I like to pause and take a moment to give utter thanks to Dean Jones for supporting that for happening. Because Amanda was one of 699 Black social workers that traveled to New Orleans to have what was, as Malika often says, a spiritual experience with the work. So thank you. All right, Amanda. That's it. Considering the importance of self-care in social work, hopefully you know what that is. We're all working on it. Particularly for Black professionals, how can students balance academic pressures with maintaining their well-being? And what culturally specific self-care practices have you found helpful, or do you think should be emphasized?
Yeah, I have definitely a skill that I'm working on building, but self-care is really, really important. And I'm finding drawing from the 7 principles, Nguzu Saba, really helpful in kind of looking inward, right, and affirming different interests and talents that I have, maybe through considering purpose or creativity. So just trying to add that to my day and look at that, even if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, can be really helpful, and just taking time to focus, recenter myself, and then have strength to give back to my clients when I go to another day of internship. I also like to think of self-care also connected with community care, in particular being involved with GBABSW, whether that's just having conversations with members or getting involved in a community event where we are giving back and helping and volunteering in the greater Boston area. That is really important as well, and I feel that that helps fill up my cup, and that's really affirming.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay, Marcus, you ready? All right, we're going to talk about student perspective on education, research, and the conference experience. All right, from your perspective as a student, how can social work programs become more inclusive of the experiences and histories of African ancestry? And what role do you see for organizations like NABSW and GBABSW in advocating for these changes within academic settings like BU?
Right. So first, I want to thank BU already for even connecting me. With the National Association of Black Social Workers, because there was an event I think called Networking in Color, in which students of color, yeah, networking, yeah, exactly. Sorry, maybe the show Living in Color came to me, but that was where I met Malika as well as Paula, who just shared a lot of information around what NABSW is about, especially the Greater Boston chapter, and invited me to another event in which I got connected that I later became a member. And through that, I was able to get connected to the conference and go to the conference, which I would not have been able to go otherwise unless BU was able to help support me get there. So I'm really happy that that has already happened and the work that BU has done so far. But some of the ways that it could be more inclusive of our experiences, more specifically, is to offer scholarships and funding and opportunities for students of color to attend BUSSW as well as other schools of social work, and just to make it easier for students to make it here, because there are students who, Melissa talked about it, like poverty is a big barrier for clients, but also for people trying to assist clients in improving their conditions and improving their reality. The other piece is adding more Black faculty and staff. That's really important. Even though I know Malika, I have not had a class with Malika, and I haven't had a Black professor quite yet due to timing and things of that nature, even though I would like to. But still, I think that would be important to help students just see that there is greatness in this field and have their cup filled up and learn from folks that have their experiences, and to ask the important questions to them to receive guidance and whatnot on that. I would also add, sorry, I just want to check my notes real quick, reading more Black authors, reading more Black authors, Black experiences, seeing things from the perspectives of Black folk, I think would be important. I know BC is our rival and things of that nature, but they also have like cohorts specifically designed toward different affinity groups, which I think is important. So that could be something that we might think about adding as well. But those are some of the ways I think. Oh, and what Amanda said as well in terms of going out into communities, offering community opportunities for folks to navigate and connect with their community, give back to their community, so that there is a relationship there, so that people know, okay, I know who I can go to, I know that there are these clinicians, and maybe inspire folks to go on this path to assist their community as well.
Thank you, Marcus.
Thank you, Dana.
And shout out to our Director of Student Services who's in the building. Listen.
And Junior's been amazing, just offering all these office hours for students to talk about their experience, so that he can help support us in bringing about the change that we want to see. And I definitely got to meet with you more to discuss on that.
So Junior Pina, our new Director of Student Services. Okay, Marcus. From your perspective as a student, how can social work program, we already have that. You also attended the recent NABSW conference with support from BUSSW. How did attending the conference shape your understanding of social work profession and your role within it? And why do you think it's important for more students and faculty to attend? And how can institutions continue to support this?
Right, so First and foremost, we learned about the Nguza Saba, which Melissa so expertly took us through, and that is important. We need to live by that in so many different ways. And there was also another workshop, Ine and Elaine, who is not here, who was also a professor at BUSSW, who y'all did an amazing job on that panel. That panel was incredible. I was so proud to be a chapter member. And also
Elaine Gatewood.
Elaine Gatewood,
yes.
And we also need to honor Kathy Lopes, who is not here.
Yes, let's honor Kathy Lopes. Yes.
The former president of the Boston chapter, that
Yes.
is now the vice president of the entire national organization.
National,
So all
yes.
honor to her.
And Cape Verdean. And Cape Verdean. Cape Verdean. We learned about Cape Verdean. And Cape Verdean.
Cape Verde folk, all that good stuff. Yes.
And a Simmons alum.
And a Simmons alum.
And receiving an award from NASW next week. Let's put we're all out there. A couple
We're
weeks.
all out there, exactly. Just wonderful. So yeah, just getting connected to all these folks and just seeing people that you are connected with just brings you so much joy. It fills up your cup. Can you repeat the question one more time? Yeah.
I feel like I think you did it, but if you want to add to it, why is it important for students and faculty attend, and how can institutions continue to support this? But I feel like you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, definitely. And so there was like learning the Nguza Saba. It was incredible. Sorry, there were other notes I added.
That's okay,
Sorry, I just wanted to make sure I get it all. And just understand that this network that we have is across the country. It's across the world. Like, there are folks that I met at that conference that I'm still in contact with and that checked in with me to make sure that my semester ended well, and I checked in with them, and it was incredibly wonderful that we were able to do that. And then being a part of this organization, it allows me to hear from students. Like, there was a freshman, Miles, he's not in the room right now, but he reached out to me, and immediately I'm thinking, we need to connect you with the National Association of Black Social Workers so that you can be involved and we can continue to do this advocacy work through our students. And even Eve, who is not here, who's our secretary, and just constantly knowing the network, knowing different clinicians or people who are doing this work and inviting them into the circle so that folks can grow. And that was the last piece I wanted to add about learning from the conference. Was there was a healing circle that was offered. And there was so much wisdom that happened, that occurred in that healing circle. And one of the pieces, the jewels that I received that I just want to impart to you all as well, is that the people that we work with are in circumstances that we are not necessarily far from. That if things went a different way, we could be there just like them. And so to have that compassion and that gratitude that we are where we are, so that we can see them as human beings, as people deserving of this service, of this work, and that we can assist them and work with them, not even just assist them, work with them, so that they can be where they want to be.
Yes, Marcus. And I wasn't going to add any ad libs, but I'm going to add to that the people in the field that you work with, that your colleagues are going through similar things that your clients are going through and you don't know. And so it is important to remember the grace, and it is important to remember that you are sitting next to someone who you have no idea what their world is. They show up every day as a social worker, do their job, right? But inside they're struggling. So it's important for us to all remember that we may not know what we support when we come together, but that healing is something we may not know what the wound was, but we did our job to help heal. So I just want to add that. All right, Marcus, your final question here is: research is a crucial tool for advocacy and social change. How do you think students and new professionals can contribute to research that not only advances the field of social work, but also directly supports the empowerment and liberation of Black communities?
Thank you. So Melissa spoke about it as well, where we need to go into these communities and ask them what they want. What do they need research on? What are some of the ways that we can help them? What are some of their practices that are already here? And let's make those evidence-based practices, because we know there are certain things that work, that people do, that aren't seen as evidence-based practices, like dancing, like being joyful, like pouring libations, like calling in your ancestors, like having conversations like these, and how impactful that can be, and being in community with one another. So definitely just checking in to ask and asking them to help design and lead the research projects, I think is important as well. And yeah, I feel like students can connect with their professors to ask about how are there different ways that they can receive research opportunities, but also to go into community organizations, potentially develop the project with that community organization and come to BUSSW and like basically reverse it, go into the community, create the project, come to BUSSW or whatever institution and say, hey, we have this, what we're trying to do. Are there ways that you can support us in making this happen?
Thank you, Marcus. Okay, moving towards leadership, collaboration, and maintaining dedicated spaces. All right. So, Madam President, as the new president of the Greater Boston Association of Black Social Workers, how do you balance the need for collaboration with institutions like BU while also preserving spaces specifically for Black social workers that promote self-determination and community empowerment?
Good question. Thank you, Dana. Authenticity, right? Authenticity, right? So I want to go back just for a second because I think the students got a chance to talk about being students and their experience at the conference. I'm also a student too, right? So I just want to throw a little bit out there. But I attended the conference as well, and you know, and BU also sponsored that trip, and it was life-changing for me as well. So when I came back to my colleagues, and we had our meetings, I'm coming off this high, and I'm like on this high in our meetings, and they're like, I'm like, I was just at the conference, and they're like, oh, how was it? I was like, I just can't explain. I don't have the words, but I know my cup was filled, right? And I was ready to do the work. And when we were down there, I was like, something's happening here. It's like something, I kept saying that. I was like, it's just like the spiritual thing is happening. And I kept mentioning, I mean, we had a lot of laughs. Like we had so much fun in this educational space of community and connection, but it was life-changing for me. My father was a social worker as well. And I'm a daddy's girl, and little girl, and social worker like Melissa, and I was always around the chapter. But timing is everything. And so, you know, I didn't join years ago, but in the last year I joined. I don't know, it was COVID and all type of stuff and life and poverty and all type of things prevent you from getting to places sometimes and making those connections. And so when I finally was able to get back with the chapter, I had an aha moment down in New Orleans. And I said, I understand my assignment. I've been doing social work for so long, just doing the work gracefully and humbly, but I didn't know my assignment. So going to the conference helped me understand what my assignment was, and I gracefully received that assignment. So when people say, "Oh, you got all this energy, how you going to do all this?" I understand my assignment. I have passion for it, right? And when you're burnt out, you can't do that. You won't see the assignment, right? Kind of like in therapy when we were meeting with our clients, if they're so overwhelmed, it's hard to see all the good things that are happening, right? So when you take a moment, you step back, you get a chance to see your strengths. You get a chance to see your purpose. So I feel like I have my purpose now, right? So now going back to BU, everything connected in so many different ways. It was like, because the way I got to BU, the trip too, also part of it is I won a ticket at Hugh. I always win raffles. So if you have a raffle, I'm gonna win.
Raffle ticket.
I won a raffle, but I just gotta say this. And in that moment, again, I always win the raffles, but it's a spirit. I knew my dad was in the room. He was like, you gotta get there. I knew I had something to do. I'm telling you, we just know. We just don't know what it is, but we just know we got something to do as social workers. And so coming back to BU, I said, oh, I see what's going on here. And so your spirit just kind of leads you. It keeps leading you, but I won't be able to be led if I'm not around the right people. I could be led down a dark path too, because darkness is real, right? And especially in these spaces too. Don't get it twisted. Social work, it's got its roots. So I said, we got to bring this here. I'm in a position of power and essence. I have leverage in essence to bring this to the campus in a way where students need this. I'm in this weird role. Everyone thinks I work full-time. I only work part-time. I'll be like, I only work here. I'll just work here a little bit. But you would think, because of the way I'm so invested and committed. And so when I look at the curriculum, sometimes we look at our curriculum and we say, whoa, hold on. I know we had so much more influence in social work, but it's not there. But who's going to tell that story? Am I waiting for everyone else to tell the story? We got to tell our own story. So then when you're asking the question of how do we leverage these spaces, we'll bring in our story, bring in the authentic space. When we come in these spaces, let me just say this. I gotta keep, I'm always gonna keep it real. Don't change who you are when you walk in these spaces. When we walk in these spaces, I mean, I understand, people, in the video you heard Charmaine say, we understand the challenges of code switching and stuff. But when you can walk in a space feeling free, your mindset, right? You don't gotta worry about some of those things. And I wanna say in this respect, like when you're authentic, when you can be yourself unapologetically. So when I came to Barbara and said, hey, I think we need to do this, I'm being authentic. Wasn't begging, I'm like, listen, we need to do this. This is why. And I think, of course, Barbara gets it and it makes sense, but the reality is, this is important. These connections are important, and if we can't be the ones to initiate the conversation, then who else is going to do it? So, what was the other part of the conversation? I got to make sure I connect, because I be having a little attention span in adulthood.
Let me see where we are here.
Hold on.
So, how do you balance the need for collaboration?
Oh,
with
okay.
institutions?
There it is. Mm-hmm. So, not only are we coming into the space, we have systematic. We want to influence the system too. And we have influenced the system. So when you come into a space like BU, of course you can partner on some things. One of my colleagues came to me and said, I know there's this event this week. Can y'all hear me? Okay. And I'm not sure if, am I supposed to be there? I was like, yeah, why not? You got to learn too. What we can't teach? But she said, I think that we fill up enough spaces in this school. And so what she told me in that moment was a lot of different things, if you hear the message, that we need more representation in the school, and that you are not the dominant narrative has taken the lead for too long. There's so many concealed stories of what we do. And I was like, you gotta learn too, sis. It's okay. Now there's some things we're gonna talk about in the chapter that unfortunately you will not be privy to, and that's okay too. But why can't we tell you why can't we have our own narratives? I don't want to wait for someone else to tell me my story. Could you imagine reading your life story and somebody wrote about your life? You're like, hold on, wait, no, that didn't happen. So I think coming into spaces like this is important to partner. It's important. How are we going to sustain another 100 years? Can't do this work alone. We don't got all the resources. But at the same time, be authentic. Do not come in a space like this or any space and change who you are. Lose your integrity. Don't do that. And I'm big on that, and I'll talk all day about that, but that's really important. So if we're gonna partner, we're gonna work together, of course we're gonna be respectful, professional, but I'm not losing my authenticity. I won't compromise that. And neither should none of our members, students, no one should. And the fact that that's the norm in our society, that we constantly have to do that, we should question that. Like you talked about the test. Well, it's not about the people taking the test, there's something wrong with the test. So it's the same thing. It's not that we should compromise and code switch. There's something wrong with the system itself, right? So anyways, I hope that answers the question.
Thank you.
I'm long-winded. I know we gotta go.
All right, our next question is, what strategies have you found effective in ensuring that unique contributions of organizations like NBSW and GBABSW are recognized and valued in professional academic setting, which I think you spoke a bit about. And what advice would you give to educational institutions to better support Black social workers and ensure their contributions are fully acknowledged, which you touched on? I don't know if you want to say more about that.
No, Dana, you got a way of trying to say, you touched on that. And it's like, I know we got to move along, but I will say, I think you touched on that. But I think just continue to allow space, to make space. The institution has a lot of power too. So if they can use that power, right, to make space so we can have these conversations, so we can come together like this, so we can send students on trips and have life-changing experiences, right? So they're more grounded, so they can come back and do the work and feel great about being a social worker. You know what's the saddest thing? When you go through an MSW program, and by the time you get to me in ethics at the last course, they're like, I don't even know why I became a social worker. Why did I do this? And I'm happy as hell, like, to tell you, like, oh, really? You don't know why? Well, let me help you come back to this, you thinking about the principles. So that's one of the saddest things to see. But I think that if, again, authenticity and thinking about how can we change the books that we have in class? Like, who's setting the tone? When I started work at school at Morgan State, I realized the difference between an R2 and an R1 institution. That's not really discussed. And there's only certain people that who can be in doctorate level and set the tone for tenure and curricula and things like that. And when I started to learn about that, I said, aha, it's kind of gatekeeping in a way. No shade to the school system, but it's gatekeeping in a way. And I was like, wow, so that's why only certain people be there for so long. Sometimes for us, it takes us a little while to understand how these systems work. But I'm like, oh, that's why such and such only gets to take the lead in writing the syllabus. And I just got to follow it, right? So we can shift that, because that's kind of colonistic, right? Because it's still it's like you're still having that control, right, of the curriculum, even though we say we anti-oppressive and anti-racist and all those different things. And the first thing I always tell, when I first met Barbara, remember we met Barbara and I was like, we talked about how BU is really pushing for anti-oppression and anti-racism. And I would say, well, what if someone's anti-racist now, what was they before? Did that just change overnight? Did that change? So I think about the system. So if we're gonna change our curricula, are we gonna change our syllabus? Are we gonna just change our practices in general? Who's controlling the processes around that is really important to kind of explore. And I don't think we really all know that process. And I think people have been working in institutions for so long and don't even know that process. We don't really know who gets to control that piece. It's really, I think it's a lot of questions to be asked, but what I will say is if we can add more resources, add more access to resources, add more access to not just groups, because groups are great when we have affinity spaces, but action-based, right? So I like how you pulled in that PowerPoint presentation, the students were the ones that were fired up and making all the changes. So I like the action component to things, right? So it's great to have spaces, but I don't want to have a space like it's just another DEI checkoff. I don't want that. So I don't think BU is doing that. I think BU is like, oh shoot, we gotta do different. And they are doing different. And other schools around the country are, but at the end of the day, if we're not changing the systematic practices, the same things will keep happening. So we have to really break down those practices around, who gets to write the curriculum, the syllabus, all those different things, what books are included. My father wrote a book, Post-Traumatic Slavery Disorder. I ain't never seen it in one school of racial justice oppression class, not one. You get what I'm saying? So there's a lot of authors, Amos Wilson, I'm like, wow, I never seen one of his books in a class. So anyways, I'll digress. But I think but again, I can't wait for someone else to bring it to the syllabus, right? I should be the one to say, hey, this needs to be in the syllabus. So we have to do our own research too and bring it up. We can't expect people to always know these things, right? So I think that's important too.
Thank you, Malika.
You're welcome.
All right, we are going to shift to student engagement, community building, and institutional support. So I'm going to shift to you, Ine, if that's okay. In your roles focusing on student affairs and membership, how do you connect with and support students of African ancestry to ensure they feel recognized and valued within the field of social work? And how do you foster a sense of community that celebrates the significant contributions of Black social workers to the profession?
So for the first question, I'll say, kind of just going off of conference sharing outs.
Yes.
So this wasn't my first conference, but I will say that the first conference is the conference that you will never forget. And I remember prepping to go to the first conference, which I think was in Indianapolis, I believe. I can't remember the year, 2014 maybe. But I remember Kathy Lopes, who was the advisor, the chapter advisor, she had said, that that opening like plenary sessions, like something that you will never forget. And I remember that moment, and I remember reading the Code of Ethics like in unison. Is one of the most powerful moments like of my life. Yes. So with that, I think the attending the conference is like that's on the top of the list.
Start there.
Yeah, start at the attending a conference because it is life-changing. It does it's transformational. It's all of the things, and it becomes part of, for me, that becomes part of my self-care, my refilling my cup, my rejuvenation, like all of that. And I went to Howard, so it's homecoming season, and I say that the conference, NABSW conference, that's the homecoming for social workers, for Black social workers. That's our homecoming. And so Howard homecoming, NABSW conference, those are my two things that are always, that's part of refilling my cup, professionally, personally, because it checks all those boxes. So I would definitely say the conference. Also, in regards to just connecting with chapter, the chapter members, the elders, I would play a huge role in that as well.
Shout out to the elders. My hands up. Raise the, yes, hi. Actually, stand, if you'd like to. We love you.
So yes, that definitely plays an important role. So for the students, that is, and we also know that students, y'all students, right? So there's that piece of there's papers to write, there's readings to do. So being really mindful of that as well. But also, again, that community piece is so key in regards to holding and lifting each other up during this time, that time of grad school. And the stress of what that comes with, but really building your community and network during that time is so important. So I think as for GBABSW, it's extending that branch, So, when we met Amanda and Marcus, it's being mindful that they have courses as well, but also what do you need? So you talk about the internships, it's about support and advice and guidance. And, oh, you want to do that? Oh, we know somebody who does that. Connect with so-and-so. And then they'll connect it with somebody. So it's that you keep, passing the baton. You keep passing and passing and passing and connecting. I think that's the main piece of it for the students. And I think it's had to look a little different. With COVID, we did some online things, via Zoom. So I think that connection piece, we have to look at it differently every time, because what works for either one student or one school may not work for everybody. So really having events that will bring people together and then asking them what their need is and meeting them where they're at. So, we do every year we try to put a book list together. We talk about authors and literature, and being intentional about that, because we know that's probably not going to be in your syllabus, or that's going to be on your reading list, right? So here's who you should be reading. Here's who you should know about. And connecting with different, professors as well, Black professors on your campus or on other campuses, and having learning opportunities that way.
Thank you, Ine. And continuing to do that at your student. So you learn as a student, but that's how you're going to navigate your whole career to be able to continue to move along. So thank you, Ine. All right. So we appreciate everyone for your patience and time. I'm going to shift one question over to Melissa. Is that okay, to kind of close us out? And then we do have refreshments for you in the lobby as well. So Melissa, with your extensive experience leading NABSW at the national level, how do you see the organization's role evolving, capstone, to meet the needs of Black social workers today, especially in diverse professional environments?
So as I said, I joined NABSW over 30 years ago. I was a student at Clark Atlanta University when I had my aha moment. I was a recipient of the C. Jomo Williams Scholarship. So I do want to tell first year MSW students, I do want to tell BSW students, there are scholarship opportunities available. So if you're a first year, because you won't get awarded until your second year, you want to keep an eye open for that as a member, and you want to apply for scholarships. I also have to say that the Greater Boston chapter of NABSW is the biggest chapter in the nation. The biggest chapter in the nation. that they reached 100 members during COVID. And I know we're renewing right now. You need your chapter to keep that title, right? Because I want you to be clear, DC is coming for you. You know what I'm saying? DC is coming, and they're coming strong. You know, they're coming for you. And you want to hold that title. That is a prestigious title, and it reflects the commitment of African people in this area. You know, what you're talking about, and, you know, some of the experience. I know Sister Paula, since I was a young social worker, she knew my father. They knew they had these connections, and these connections made a difference, and they make a difference throughout your career. I have amazing Black social workers on speed dial. Yes. If you are practicing social work and you don't know who Jerome Shealy is, write it down. Mm-hmm. He is an expert on African-centered practice. If you don't know who Malifi Asante is, if you don't know who Wade Nobles is, you have to understand that the way they teach human behavior, the way they teach it is completely different, right? And so you need to know there is an alternative to Western practice, right? That there is a necessity to ensure that we have our scholars asserted. I was the president of the National Association of Black Social Workers before I even heard of GAGE. Brother Bailey was a leader of this organization. There are organizations, GAGE, the Grand Challenges of Social Work, Clinical Social. These organizations make decisions for social work. And we need to be aware of that. We need to influence the boards. We need to make sure they know what it is that we want to do. So there are a lot of practitioners who are not aware of the institutions that make a determination of what your EPOS is going to be, what you're going to learn, how you're going to learn, how your institution gets accredited. So these, as a student, you're not a passive recipient. You are an aggressive participant. You need to be real clear on where this information comes from. And as the leader of the National Association of Black Social Workers for 4 years, during the pandemic, when things changed, and, you know, I believe the Creator and the ancestors have things doing what they're supposed to do, because I was the vice president. I was not the president at the time. I did not anticipate being a president until my daughter graduated from Howard University. That was my plan. But the Creator and the ancestors had different plans. And I believe it was because during the pandemic, we were able to pivot. We were able to use the internet in a way that we had never used it before, where we were able to have online, where you could have experts that could talk to you from all over the country, where we can see that you don't have to travel like she did on trains across the country, that all you got to do is log in and you can still have opportunity while you're driving home, catching the train to learn. Lunch and learns, we have opportunities for lunch and learns. There are committees, national committees, if you're a member, that you can participate on. So you can join a national committee as a student. They want your expertise. They need somebody who know Canva. And believe me,
That's right.
Believe me, it was a blessing for me. I heard when I had a master's degree and been practicing, it was a blessing for me to be able to go to NABSW and just hand out flyers to help the elders to their seat. It was an opportunity for me to give back and just learn, do whatever it is you need to do. I don't need to be the expert in the room. I can just sit back and, what do you need? How can I help you? How can I be of service to you? Because that is the African way. Yes. When you go to African communities, when you go to Ghana, when you see the elders, you bow down. That's right. You acknowledge their presence in a way, because they are the reason that we're here. And that Sankofa moment, when you're looking back at the elders. Those are whose shoulders we stand on. Johnny Hamilton Mason. You cannot talk about social work in this area and not talk about this queen. Every Black social worker in this room, we standing on her shoulders. Mm-hmm. She has done so much for this community, and even so much, even right now, she's not here today. She text messaged me and said, Melissa, I can't be here because I'm on my way to Africa. Ain't that terrible? She said, just make me jealous. But it is our responsibility to look back at those who are there before. We have to acknowledge them. And not only do we take from the elders, we give to the elders. So when I listen to the students, to me, what you're saying is a mandate for an organization of what you want to do. But you know, you don't just write it down. You don't say it in the forum. You get on a committee, and you get on a committee, and you use your expertise, and you say, this is how I can make a difference. This is how I can present. I had many students that say, well, would you present with me? To be honest, you know, only thing I do at NABSW conferences is what I'm told. You know, they say, Melissa, you gonna do this? I say, okay. Because I would rather, in fact, even as the president, if I'm not talking, I'm sitting there. When I was the president, I would sit there because I want to see what's going on up there. I'm glad I'm the immediate past president. I don't have to be up there. And Dr. Minata say, come up here. I'm like, no, I don't have to come up there. But I do what it is that I'm supposed to do. So I just, you know, what I say to you, and I do appreciate the opportunity to be here and to let you know and to thank the dean and to thank Madam President and to thank Dana, because this is really how you make connections. This is really how you make change. Yes, you could really email me and say, Melissa, what do you think about this? And I'll respond. But what I'm not going to do is do it. That's right. What I'm going to tell you is, okay, this is what you want to do. Put it in motion. Get your mission, because I know what my ministry is. I know what the Creator has for me to do. And if I can help you do it, I would love to do it. So I just want to say again, you know, Asante Sana, Madasi, thank you so much. I was about to go crazy because it's 2 clocks. One say 4:10, the other one say 5 minutes to 3. And as a real administrator, I'm like, what time is it? What? I didn't know what time zone. I didn't know if this was central or this. I didn't know what was going on. So I do appreciate having the opportunity. So I definitely want to thank you.
Thank you. So we're going to have 1 minute of closing remarks from our president of the local chapter, and then, okay.
You want me to close? Okay, hold on. Hello? Can y'all hear me? Okay, perfect. So I just want to thank, again, BU, Barbara, our dean of BU School of Social Work. BU School of Social Work is leading the way, I must say, in Boston. But I also, yes, thank you. And I also want to acknowledge our Vice President, Jasmine. Welcome. She's in the building, Jasmine. I put you on the spot, Jasmine. Sorry, I want to put some respect on your name. But no, I wanted to introduce you too because, you know, we are leading this organization, and we have to work collectively. We have to talk, but you know, leading an organization is not easy, and we have an e-board, we have members, we have committees, we have chairs, we have our elders. We do it all together, right? And I just want to welcome everyone to get to know us, to connect with us. If you see us in the community, you know, honk your horn, come talk to us. Don't be afraid. Ask us different, you know, we have a wealth of knowledge and expertise. And I always tell all social workers, you are experts. Right? Your clients are experts of their lives, but we are experts. Like sometimes in our field, we're always looking for someone else to tell. No, we have a unique set of skills that we own as social workers. We have a certain eye that others don't have. So connect with us. Get with us. Come to our events. We welcome you. We embrace you. We are leading this organization with innovation. But I want to say something. I want to just make this connection. I am big on AI. Right? AI and technology in leading the future of social work and what that's going to look like. And there's a lot of questions and ethics around that. But I also want to acknowledge that we have to also lead with our ancestral intelligence as an organization. So just wanted to make that connection between ancestral intelligence and AI intelligence, right? Moving into the future is really important for us. So we are current social workers, but we are going to shift what the future of social work looks like. Just watch. That's all I wanted to say.
Loud. So thank you all for coming. There are so many powerful, intelligent, brilliant, beautiful people in this room. Just phenomenal. Please keep your eye out for more opportunities. Yes.
Excuse me, I'm a proud member of NABSW. I just want to say thank you so much to Melissa for coming and gracing us. Thank you so much for our history of Boston, which I think is really important. And I got to be honest, as we look back, it's important that we also talk about the past presidents and have to say I'd be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the past president of Simmons ABSW and also of Greater Boston ABSW, Roxanne Maskell. I think that's incredibly important that we're not leaving that history out. And I'm not a social worker, so to speak. I'm an artist. But I got inspired in 2014, and I was there in Indianapolis, which was, I don't need a mic, I'm good. Thank you. But I was there in Indianapolis. And one thing we did leave off is that group was involved with Dr. Denise Davison in the beginning of Harambe, right? That whole beginning piece. And it was those group of students with their hands in the air, fist, I have the picture, that changed everything. And that galvanized Boston once again. So you were right, it was the students, but it was the students of Simmons that started it, that worked together with the elders to bring things back. So I'm really excited that that's where this is, but we cannot leave out what that history was, because that's part of the history of Boston and of this chapter. So thank you so much, I really appreciate you.
Meet us in the reception area to network, to enjoy some food, and just enjoy being in space and sharing space with one another. Thank you so much for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. Peace.